RPG Rules tutorial number 5 in the series on the RPG Settings object, and we're going to have a look at player inventories and how they get set up. So I'll just close down the stats right there. So in custom enum CS we have this list of inventory types here in enum, and like the comment says here, you probably don't want to change this. You don't want to remove anything or add anything from here. Removing entries from here could break the code. And these are different types of inventories you can have. So an inventory is a collection of items of some kind that the player can accumulate. You can have a general inventory being like a character's backpack. Boosts is their consumables, be it a inventory for sort of abstract candy type of things like I've got, or a potion belt in a fantasy game. Devices are sort of extra little things to give you extra powers temporarily, and so on. Active powers, when we run the game, this power tray down here is actually your inventory of active powers there. This is your equipment one, and these have all got similar UIs using the inventory UI component to sit on top of an inventory. What you may want to change, and what you are sort of invited to change, is the early entries in this equipment slots. Enum, primary offense, primary defense. So just to show you quickly, if we have a look at devices, find all references. Yep, there's references to that throughout the code. Primary offense, however, there are no references to that. These later entries, like consumable, yep, don't remove any of these or it'll break the code, but these ones are kind of user defined. So the equipment slots are different positions on the character where you can put a piece of equipment. The way I've set it up in Universe Gun is we have primary offense, secondary offense, same with defense and support, and then a left hand and right hand weapon. For a fantasy game you may want to make it more like armor, helmet, amulet, gloves, boots, and so on. Same kind of thing. These are just referred to in different pieces of equipment. If we just have a quick look at one, prefabs equipment. Stun grenade is of type device, that's device. Where do we find them in sci-fi? Belt, for example, is a primary defense object. It goes in that primary defense slot, if you have one of them. So, you can define equipment slots here. In the RPG Settings object, Assets, RPG Rules, Resources. In here, we define what inventories the characters have. So I've set it up with 8 of them here. First one is Enhancements, has 20 slots. That's this inventory we can see here with 20 slots. Those little white buttons open and close them typically. We have Boosts with 20 slots and 5 columns. That's there. I'll just drag them apart. Devices, 5 slots with 5 columns. Active powers, 20 slots with 2 columns there. You can see how this all relates to the UI. The UI's created it from this list, kind of. We'll get to that. The general one is 30 slots. That's this big backpack here. 5 columns. Mouse powers is one we use for the overhead view. Isn't used in this UI, where you can just have a power for the left mouse and right mouse. And recipes is an invisible inventory used in the crafting thing. Now, some of these as well are ticked as shared. Let's illustrate that by let's go to the game. So we'll go to RPG Rules, Universe Gun, UI, main menu. Save that. And we'll just go into the laboratory and show you these shared inventories. Take a few characters in. Okay, so Princess Amtora has got her own her own set of equipment there. If we switch to another character, we can see the equipment changes. The active powers change, obviously. However, the backpack, note the QMAC pistol in the top middle there, is shared by all three of them. So that's a way characters can sort of drag and drop items between them. You know, oh, I don't need this solar medallion anymore, I'll put it back in the inventory there. And then Princess Amtora could grab it and put it on, and so on. And that's because the inventories have been set up as shared in here. Now, if we have a look at one of those characters that are prefab, so we've got Universe Gun characters, Princess Amtora here, and just have a look at what components she's got. Quite a few. That's all the ones that are required to set up a character who can basically work in AI, or work as AI or playable. But if we have a look at Princess Amtora in the scene, this one is the original, we can see it's created a whole bunch of inventories for her as well. And it's done that based on, now what have we got? We've got a devices one, an active powers one, an equipment one, and mouse powers. And they're the ones in the RPG settings object which were not ticked as shared: devices, active powers, equipment, and mouse powers. If we go to the camera, we'll see that's where RPG Rules sticks a few inventories that don't exist in the scene. It puts one for enhancements there, one for boosts, general, the general backpack there, Colossal Visor of Venus, Colossal Visor of Venus, Bucky Paper Armor of 0, you can see them all there, and the recipes one. They're all getting placed on the camera because they're shared inventories. So yeah, that's how this system works. In the UI, in the common UI, we then have a number of things like the boost canvas here. Contains a palette with a boost panel, which has got an inventory UI on it, and in here we list the inventory type somewhere, I think. Yep, here it is, of type of boosts. So it looks through the character and the shared ones and finds the boosts inventory and fills it up with that. And then we have like the inventory canvas with a palette and a panel which has the general inventory on it. These different power canvases, Powers Linear has a palette with inside a panel with an inventory UI of type active powers, and so on. So what you'll want to do is decide what kind of inventories are relevant, what kind of inventories do you want to have in the game for your characters, and which ones are going to be shared and which ones not. Like you may, for example, want each character to have their own individual backpack, so you'd go to the general one and untick that. Shared. You'd then want to have the characters able to share items in another way through a trade screen or whatever. If you are indeed having multiple characters. If, for example, you don't want to have any enhancements in the game, if that's just not part of your plan really, we can just go delete array item. We don't take enhancements out of this list here, because there's still code that uses that variable. but we can just say, right, there's no enhancement inventory in this game because we're using a different leveling up system that doesn't use them. Similarly, we could get rid of the mouse powers one if we're not going to be using left and right mouse click in the user interface. Recipes, we could get rid of that if we don't have a crafting system, and so on and so on. Yeah, if you were wanting to, you might want to add your own types of inventory here and put some custom code in for it. If so, that's up to you. But yeah, here is where we basically specify what inventories we've got and how big each ones are. There are some things I haven't supported yet, like changing the inventory size on a per character basis as they level up, say, or putting together a user interface with tabs on the same larger inventory. At the moment, this is all we've got. Yep. And then equipment slots, we basically just say on a per character basis what pieces of equipment can each character wear. So this list of equipment slots is pretty much just this list here. It's just making sure that we're saying the character doesn't have an equipment slot where they put a consumable or a device or whatever. They go in inventories instead, those ones. The reason these things are all put together in the same enum is to do with the equipment system, which we'll cover in another tutorial. So yeah, that's the final piece of configuring your game, is to decide what kind of inventories you want and how big they all are, and what type of equipment slots you're going to have on the character. If you don't know what you want, just leave it at the default settings for now, and then we can, and then you can customize it later when you've made some decisions.